So you've been seeing me try to get all of the old oil and crud out of this right here. The best way to do this obviously is to take this all apart, but I'm trying to eliminate that right now. I don't want to take all this apart. I simply want to try to give it a good cleaning and clean out the best that I can, get rid of the oil, the old oil, rust, and chips that's in there. And I think I've done pretty good using the heavy duty degreaser. Clean it, wipe it, blow it. I've been running it back and forth multiple times, and I've just about got it to where when I move it back and forth, it's not pulling, you know, that brown or orangish colored oil out of there. So we've got it pretty clean. I'm going to go ahead and Scotch-Brite these ways just to kind of clean them up and get rid of that surface contamination on there. We'll use a little bit of lubricant right here and some Scotch-Brite and get it clean. You can really start to see the hand flaking that they put in there on these ways to help with the oil and lubrication. You see those, what looks like X marks in there? That's your hand flaking, as well as out here. Got a little bit of wear in the middle of that though. So this side right here is what gets more of the pressure whenever the machine's being used, all the weight's bearing down. And I can tell, so you've got a lot more wear on this side of the ways. I can see a little bit of the hand flaking right in here, and I can see a little bit down in this area there too. It's just really hard to see on video. But you can see the difference though between this side. This side still got quite a bit of hand flaking being shown, and this one just about all wore out. So typical with an old machine tool like this, it's 80 years old, you're going to have wear in it. But all we're doing is just trying to get it cleaned up and get it to where it can oil itself, or we can oil it properly so we can use it. See the hand flaking right through there. I can still see some up in there too. So I'm continuing on the cleaning here for the top of the carriage and the cross slide here. We've got all this pretty well done. Still got to reinstall the gib there, but I just don't want to bore you guys with all this cleaning stuff. But it's just a lot of work, and I wanted to go ahead and get the top of this clean, getting it Scotch-Brighted. I'll also point out that all of these bolt holes here, I've been cleaning those out. They were just packed completely tight with, you know, chips and grime and grease and everything. So we got all those cleaned out there. It was just bothering me, and I was waiting for this moment to clean them out, using my Duresta ice pick to, you know, pull all that stuff out of there, and then use a vacuum right there to like suck everything out instead of blowing it all over the place. Got these holes cleaned out there. That's a deep hole on both sides there. And that's used for a, I believe the following rest bolts on right there. It bolts into this hole and in this hole in the front right there. I don't actually have a follow rest, but that's what those holes are for. So anyway, we're gonna get these kind of Scotch-Brighted to kind of match, you know, the look of this right here. Get the top of it kind of cleaned up a little bit more before we get our cross slide bolted back on there. This is the cast iron guard that bolts to the back of the cross slide. I'm just gonna get it cleaned up a little bit. You can see that this has been weld repaired in the past. The one that was on the Pacemaker when I worked at Motion was the same way. It was all busted and cracked. I ended up fabricating one for that lathe there. So I think this particular cover right here is prone to being broken and cracked over the years because of being cast. Things probably being dropped on it and causing it to crack. But we'll just get it cleaned up here with the wire brush. Got all this clean. We got the gib back in there. Everything's oiled well. Put our cover back on here now. I'm ready to get our compound set on the lathe over there. Unfortunately, my big jib crane is out of reach of the end of the table here without moving the table. I don't want to move it. So I've just got my sky hook set up. We'll pick it up. I've got my flex arm cart here. We'll be able to set it on the cart and then roll it over there and then pick it up. So just transfer it over there to the jib crane. So I've got this set. It should pick it up without too much fuss. I've got it hooking in on the corners there. Go ahead and get our cart over here. Got putting these standoffs there just because that pin's on the bottom that it rotates on. Easy as that. All right, we're just going to get the surface ready to set the compound down on. making sure that it's clean. I've already wiped it down once with the degreaser. All right. And one last thing we're going to do before we set it down on there, I'm going to put some lubricant and rust inhibitor on there. All right, let's go pick up the compound and set it in place. Give the bottom of this thing one more quick check. Make sure that it doesn't have any grit on it. All right, so lining up these 4 studs is what's going to be a little tricky to get correct. I'll try to eyeball them as close as we can and then start lowering it down. Trying to get a couple of them lined up here. All right, those 2 on the other side there are lined up. I think those are now. There we go. Come on. All right. Not quite there. It's that very front tip that's sitting on the strap. So let me see if I can just pull it out of there. There you go. Touchdown. All right, so pre-partied a little bit early. I forgot that you actually have to start the nuts on these studs as you're lowering it down. So we need to pick it back up so that we can get the nut started on there. Trying to catch just those corners there. I think that's how I lifted it off. There we go. So these are the original hex nuts, and what I did was I soaked them in evaporust to clean them, and then I polished them. I deburred them over on the polishing wheel because they've been kind of rounded over the years, you know. So just got them looking good again. Okay, I think we are ready to lower it down. There goes my light. I think I gotta lower the hex nuts a little bit to get it to drop all the way down. Yep. Now we can go down with it. All right, there it is. Okay, now we can celebrate touchdown, right? I'll let that one drop down into the slot there where you actually remove them. There you go. Doing it again. There we go. Man, I'm so happy to finally see this back on the lathe, and it's looking good. Let me turn that light off there. Nice and cleaned up. Everything's nice and clean. We are ready to go. We'll get these tightened down. I got to go find me a wrench. I believe it was, if I remember right, it's a 15/16 wrench. And I bought one to keep on the lathe, but I've got it in the toolbox now. But next up, we'll go ahead and get our Multifix tool post mounted on here. We're getting really close. I was wrong about the wrench. It's actually 1/16 is the size. This is one I picked up, I want to say maybe Florida Flywheelers. I got that specifically to keep on the lathe here, an old classic Craftsman. So I've got it set at, I've just got it set at 30 degrees. That's usually where I keep them at. 29.5, 30 degrees. And the funny thing about the way this is such a tight setup is that you have to utilize the offset on the wrench there whenever you're going to tighten or loosen it up. See, like right there, I can't get a bite, so I got to flip it over to get in there and get a little leverage on tightening it up right there. All right, there we go. That is tightened down. Let's get the tool post mounted on there. All right, it is time to get the post on here. We got our Pee Wee Tools Multifix D1 size tool post here. Going back on with some SP350. Just like that. All right, and then this is that's our bolt that we machined to hold it there. We've also got this piece here that's gonna fit on there. Coat everything down with SP350. It keeps it from rusting. All right, so let's see, it's gonna go this way right here. And then we have our pointer. That guy, it's going to go on here too, and we're going to have to, we need to get this positioned where we want it. We got our bolt. I forgot that thing was starting to get tight on me. It's like it's binding up on the bore a little bit. I'm not going to tighten it down fully yet, because what I want to do is I want to get me a holder in here, get it indicated nice and square with this compound set the way I want all the time, and we'll have a zero position. We'll have this zero position set so that whenever we're doing our most basic position, which would be turning and facing, it'll be on position 0 right there. All right, we'll get one of our holders on here. Come on. There we go. And then this is what I'm talking about. I want to get this square to the axis of the spindle. And then when we do, we can sort of get that position where we want to. And I did find my wrench. I did have this is a 1 5/8 wrench. And I got it here just for this right here to use on the tool post. And it'll also fit on the tailstock if I want to. Fortunately, we still have the original wrench here, but I can also use it right here on the tailstock as well. This was another one of my flea market scores a long time ago, and I used it on the Pacemaker at Motion, and then when I left, I brought it, and now look at this. We get to use it on another Pacemaker. Get my indicator on here and get this guy indicated the way I like. Not too bad for eyeballing it there. I think this bolt, I'm gonna end up having to take this, we'll set it up in the other lathe. I need to skin a few thousandths off that center shank because I think I've just got it too close of a fit. It's trying to move everything. Try to make a nice machinist fit and it ends up hurting you because you got it such a close tolerance. All right, that's good right there. Let's see if it'll stay. I think it's trying to twist it. Yep. All right, so I got to make a modification. That's what's happening. It's trying to turn the tool post instead of just pull it down because I have it too tight on the bore in here. But I can deal with that later. We'll just go ahead and work with what we got now. Well, I can say that our compound is now officially mounted to the machine. We've got our tool post mounted down there, but I'm gonna have to make a modification here to this guy. It's not working the way that I want it to work. Whenever I go to tighten the bolt, when I get it indicated where I want to, it's trying to twist on me before it gets tight. So I may need to add another washer underneath this, or maybe switch it to the traditional, have a stud with a washer and a hex nut on top of that. I'm not sure yet, but we're gonna revisit this and see if we can improve on this. It's gonna work fine for right now. I've got it tight. Once you pull on it, it's tight. It's just not indicated perfectly square the way I want to, but we'll get back to that. That way we can get this fixed up the way we want. So now that this is set up, we can move on to start making our very first chips in the machine. We're just gonna make a test cut on here, or maybe a few test cuts, and see how it's gonna go. But there's still a lot of things on this machine that I plan on getting to and working on. This is a fun project for me. That's how I'm looking at the Pacemaker. It's here for work, for projects, but being able to improve it. You know, you've got an 80-year-old machine. There's a lot of things that need to be tended to on the machine. For example, we need to do a fluid change on this. We haven't drained the oil, so that's going to be something we need to do there. We also need to adjust the clutch. That was the other major issue that I was having. The clutch was a little bit noisy. It's also, you know, kind of drifting a little bit whenever it's still cold. So clutch adjustment, oil change. I want to replace all of the felt wipers on the machine. I took this one off and cleaned it. That's a rubber wiper that somebody put on there, previous owner. So maybe make a felt wiper for that. Just a lot of different maintenance issues that kind of need to be tended to on the lathe to help it improve and get it back to a really good working machine. But really happy that that's finally on there and ready to go. So bring you guys back very soon. We'll make some test cuts on the machine, put a tool in there. We're gonna see how the machine's gonna react, because I have never used this before, and I hope that the lathe is gonna actually operate the way that I'm hoping it will, and that we don't have any further problems, you know, in the gearbox or the feed box down here, the feed over here on the carriage, those things. We don't know if everything is 100% or if anything needs to be fixed on it. So we'll bring you guys back and make some test cuts on the American Pacemaker. I think it's time to finally make our first chips over on the American Pacemaker. I'm excited about this, so let's get over here and see what it's gonna do. We're just gonna do some testing to see how the machine reacts and make sure that the feeds are working right, and just overall just check it out for the first time, because I have no idea how it's gonna perform. But a couple things I'm gonna mention before we get started. So in the previous video, I was showing we were tightening down our tool post here, and I was having a problem with it trying to move as you tighten this bolt up to get it where you wanted. So I took this piece off here, the steel bushing that the bolt is going down. I skint 5 thousandths out of that bore because it was really close to the bolt. And I also machined this bronze washer here that the bolt will pull down against. And my hopes is that by doing that, you know, it's a washer, so it should eliminate any spinning of this. So I was able to finally get my tool indicated. So we got this indicated nice and square, and it didn't move on me that time there. So I'm going to continue to play with this if we need to and make some modifications. The other thing that you can do with a Multifix is it's actually designed with, there's a couple of holes through the body here. And the way it's designed is that you actually should drill it to install a couple of pins. That will eliminate any kind of rotational movement if you're like under a very heavy load when you're turning or something, to keep the tool post from trying to pivot and spin. I don't want to do that yet. I want to make sure everything's right before we put any holes in that. I've just never been one to go in here and drill for the pins. Never had a reason, but if you're doing some really heavy turning, it's a really good modification to make. So this should be ready to go. I have got a turning tool in here. This is one I've had. We've got a Walther carbide insert in there. We'll give that a try. And I think this is ready to go. So we'll put a piece of material in here and go ahead and fire it up and see if we can make some chips. We'll start out by giving you guys a little run out check with this 3-jaw chuck here. So earlier today I did this because I was curious of what it's running out, and I'm going to show it to you. So a lot of you guys know I'm not a huge fan of 3-jaw chucks. I'm trying to get this thing in neutral. But they serve their purpose, and I know that everybody likes using a self-centering chuck for many reasons, especially if you're doing production work. And you know, if you've got raw stock that you're putting in a chuck that you're going to be turning, it's not really crucial on what it's running out there. But this one's got what I would consider excessive run out, and that's okay because I got plans to actually clean up we've got a big 4-jaw Cushman that was probably original to the Pacemaker that I can tell that it was sitting on a pallet for many years not being used. It's got a lot of surface rust. We're going to get to that very soon and get that restored so we can get it mounted on the machine. But I got this piece of 4140 here. It's not perfect, but it's going to be close enough to see this little test here. Now I will say the chuck functions really well. I mean, it's got a nice smooth feel to the scroll, so it works pretty good on you know, opening and closing the jaws there. But it's got a lot of run out. Let me show you. We'll get an indicator on here. Just a quick reference here. Let's see if we're getting about the same run out that I got earlier today. Yep. So there's your low. Let me adjust this and I'll get you a little better shot of this so you can see. That is 12 thousandths. 12 thousandths run out. Now when I stuck it in there earlier today, I did the same thing. I was getting 14 thousandths run out. So, you know, that's definitely an improvement, but it might change every time you open and close these jaws. Like I said, that's not necessarily bad for a lot of jobs, but if you're turning parts that you want to run true, then this isn't going to work very well. But if you're turning raw stock like this and then you're pulling the piece out, cutting it off, not a big deal. It is a nice big 3-jaw chuck, so it's going to be nice to have on the machine here, but we're definitely not going to be keeping it on here. I think these machines are better suited for 4-jaws, especially when it comes to job shop work. So we're going to take this out. I'm not going to turn that. I'm going to take some old scrap material that we'll use to make chips, so I'm not using up my good stock here. I realize I didn't give you a better shot at run out, so I apologize about that, but we were getting 12 thousandths run out there. This is what we'll start with. I think this is 1018. It could be 4140. I'm not sure. It's a pin out of those 8-inch rollers that I used to build a long time ago. I've got some videos on the channel from probably my first year of doing YouTube on building those 8-inch rollers. This is one I've had sitting outside for years, so I just wire brushed it, and we'll make some chips out of that, hopefully. Get the chuck tight, and then we'll get started on it. All right, let's get her fired up. So you can hear the clutch back here, right in this area. That's what I was talking about, one of our maintenance problems that we need to get into and see if we can adjust that clutch to eliminate that rattling noises that it's making there. Would help if you put it in gear. All right, we'll get our feed set up. We'll start with a 10 thou feed and let's make some chips. All right, we'll just start off kind of moderate. This is set at 330 RPM. Let's see if I got my tool on center first. Make a little face cut. Well, there is our first chips. Modify the height here. All right, that looks pretty good. That should be on center. Make a little face cut. We've got a little travel dial mounted here, so we can use this for our Z movement right there. Zero it out. Let's move it 50 thousandths. Make our first cut. And the feed's working pretty good so far. Headstock's a lot more noise than what I want it to be. That looks like cold roll, probably 1018. All right. Well, you guys just witnessed our very first cut on the Pacemaker. We're going to try that one more time with some more speed. 540. There we go. So let's go ahead and make our first turn on the OD. Let's try that. It's going to be 1/8 of an inch. 10 thou feed. Okay, the turn's looking pretty good. Not too fond of the sound of the gearbox. A lot more noisy than it should be. Come back here, let's make another cut. 150 thou, no problem at all. Go ahead and bump that up a little bit. This will be 200 thousandths, 10 thousandths feed rate. Seems to be handling it nice. That last heavy cut you saw, that was 350 thousandths on the dial there. This is 300 with a 12,000 feed rate. There's a 250 on the dial with a 15 thou feed. I can definitely see the difference in using that scroll chuck versus what I would see with a 4-jaw. Moving some metal right there. All right, well, we're making some progress though. Just seeing how the machine is reacting. All right, let's make one more pass here. This is 300 at 15 thousandths feed rate. We are running 455 RPM, by the way. See that shaking? That's the 3-jaw chuck doing that. All right. So what I'm referring to when I was mentioning that's the 3-jaw chuck allowing us to move, that's one of the problems with a 3-jaw chuck. You have all these spaces in between the three that is allowing that material to try to move around. So when you're taking a really heavy cut like this and a pretty substantial feed rate, it's trying to just move on you. It's trying to pick that material up. Not a big deal when you're roughing and you're just moving material. Once you're taking a light cut, it's obvious it's going to smooth out, but just one of the differences between having 3 jaws versus 4 or even 6 jaws with a 6-jaw scroll chuck. So what I'm learning right off the bat of the machine is that I think the headstock is fairly noisy on this machine. I'm comparing this pacemaker to the pacemaker I ran at Motion, same size machine, but the one that I ran all those years at Motion was a lot smoother sounding than this gearbox right here. Why that is, I don't know yet, but we need to get in here. It's got fluid and we're showing fluid pumping, so the oil pump is pumping, but hopefully maybe a fluid change will maybe help that whenever we get to that there as well. But the machine seems to be reacting good. It's making a chip. Our feed is working correctly. So far, all the feeds that I've set over here on the quick change is working. So we may have a pretty good machine on our hands here. It just needs a lot of other maintenance things to tend to, just like we did with the compound here. But I'm happy so far. I'm just not liking the noise out of the headstock that it's making. Well, I think our first test cuts went fine. The feeds work, the gearbox works. As I mentioned, I'm a little concerned about the noise that the gearbox is making. I know that it's not how it should sound. We're just going to have to get into this thing later and and see what the problem is. It could be the bearings are wore out in there. I'm not sure. Really don't know. We don't know the machine very well yet. We'll have to get the lid off and get in there and kind of do some inspections and see what we find. But as I mentioned before, I got this because I love an American pacemaker lathe. Always wanted one. Finally found one for a good price. Got it here. So not only is this a usable machine for our shop where we can do some nice shaft work or whatever we need to for a bigger lathe, it's also a shop project for me. It's a personal shop project, so that whenever I feel like it, I can take my time and get in here and do some of these maintenance issues on the machine and try to improve this machine as we go. I'm not interested in doing, a complete machine tear down and rebuild. That's not what I'm after. That's not what I want to do. I just want to do some improvements, just like we did with the compound here. We made our new nut, our screw, got it all back together, and it's working real good. There's a lot of little things on this machine that need to be tended to and try to help improve the quality of, you know, what kind of condition it's in right now. Way wipers need to be replaced. Got to do a fluid change on this, but we'll inspect that gearbox once we get to that. Work on the clutch and a lot of other things that I can't remember to mention at this time, but really happy to finally see some chips being made. And I was really excited to show you guys, the viewers, because I know you've been waiting a long time. It's approaching almost a year since we got this and put it in the shop. And it's just, I've had so much going on in the shop, so many other machines and other projects that, you know, I just have to kind of like, you know, work on things whenever I get an opportunity to. But I made this a priority to get this back together, because the main thing is I want to be able to have this machine ready for a job that might come up that we can get over here and actually use it. So next big thing that I want to do though is the 4-jaw chuck. I want to start working on that. We're going to do an evaporust soak on that with my big tank, and then clean it up really good, get it all polished up, and then get it mounted on the machine here. I'm really excited to do that. So that'll probably be the next major project that we do, and then start getting into our fluid and our clutch adjustments there. All right, so I hope you guys have enjoyed, and hopefully you've been excited as I am to see this happen. I'm super excited to finally see some chips. Now I've got plenty down here on the floor and the machine I need to get cleaned up, but hopefully we'll see you again very soon.